Yes, yes, yes. You can win as long as you keep your head to the sky. Just make sure you don't get any rain on your head. Live from Washington, D.C., you're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey in a very rainy, soggy nation's capital, very different from life in Los Angeles, where it was just 70 plus degrees. But I have a feeling spring is just around the corner. I'm in touch, and so you be in touch. Be sure to follow me on all the social media platforms, including X and Instagram and Threads and Spill and all of them, including Facebook and YouTube at Dr. Nii-Quartelai. That's DrNiiQuartelai. Pro tip, just type in Dr. Nii, and like magic, I will appear. Also, be sure to download the KBLA app to listen to us live or on demand, or simply tell Alexa to play KBLA Talk 1580, and we will pop right on up. More magic. You get where I'm going with this? Also, be sure to use the open mic feature on the KBLA app. That way you can leave me a voice note. You can give me your take on news of the day. You can even tell me how you're feeling as we're getting closer and closer to the November election. We want to hear from you. And so sound off using the open mic feature on the KBLA app. And last but not least, be sure to subscribe to A More Perfect Union podcast. That way you never, ever, ever miss an episode. On this day in history, in 1968, civil rights leader Martin Luther King Jr. delivered what turned out to be his final speech. That's right. In 1965, he delivered what turned out to be his final speech, telling a rally of striking sanitation workers in Memphis, Tennessee, that, quotes, "I've been to the mountaintop," and, quotes, "seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land." And so on this day, we think of the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I know tomorrow at the King Center, there will be a wreath that is laid in his honor, remembering that tragic day where Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated, taken from us far too soon, almost 60 years ago. And so we are thinking of the King family and just a generation that was both inspired and heartbroken with the loss of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Now it's time for the good, bad, and ugly headlines of the day. It's time for your national news roundup, and kicking us off overseas, the machine did it coldly. Israel used AI to identify 37,000 Hamas targets. The Guardian is reporting that the Israeli military's bombing campaign in Gaza used a previously undisclosed AI-powered database that at one stage identified 37,000 potential targets based on their apparent links to Hamas. This is according to intelligence sources involved in the war. In addition to talking about their use of AI systems called Lavender, the intelligence sources claim that Israeli military officials permitted large numbers of Palestinian civilians to be killed, particularly during the early weeks and months of the conflict. Their unusually candid testimony provides a rare glimpse into the firsthand experiences of Israeli intelligence officials who've been using machine learning systems to help identify targets during the 6-month war. Israel's use of powerful AI systems in its war on Hamas has entered uncharted territory for advanced warfare, raising a host of legal and moral questions and transforming the relationship between military personnel and machines. Another Lavender user questioned whether humans' role in the selection process was meaningful. And so you better believe as we continue to talk about the deployment of artificial intelligence and AI powered technologies, this is just the latest real life case study of what can go wrong when there are not rules of the road or when folks don't adhere to rules of the road when it comes to AI technologies. Here back at home, USA Today is reporting that the FAFSA blunders haven't let up. Now the Education Department has a credibility issue. Earlier this year, the Education Department shared what appeared to be objectively good news. Millions of college financial aid forms, commonly referred to as FAFSAs or free applications for federal student aid. Well, they had been successfully submitted, the agency said in an announcement on January 30th. Federal officials have also updated their aid calculations to make it as simple and easy as possible for families to get help paying for college. That's what the agency said. But tucked into the fifth paragraph of that bulletin was a troubling tidbit. Colleges and universities would not receive students' financial aid data until the first half of March, more than a month later than the government had promised. It was the first time the agency acknowledged the setback, another wrench thrown in the financial aid process for colleges and students. Many schools, it turned out, did not get a critical mass of records they needed until the end of March. And so what's more is the quote unquote update that the department touted as a victory was really more of a correction to a massive problem. And crunching the numbers for how much millions of families could afford to pay for college in the next school year, the agency failed to account for inflation. Amid mounting scrutiny, officials course corrected, and the January announcement was part of that reset. And so there are a lot of students and families across the country that are waiting on their financial aid packages. If you're like me, you remember waiting for the financial aid package. That was almost just as important as figuring out whether or not you were admitted. And for a lot of young people, particularly first and second generation college students, that financial aid package may make the difference between what school they go to if they decide to go to a four-year college or university at all. And so really hope that the education department is able to fix this quickly so that students and families aren't rushed into making a really important decision. And talking about really important stuff, Disney fends off boardroom blitz as shareholders vote to stay the course. NBC News is reporting that Disney CEO Bob Iger today fended off an aggressive challenge by activist investors seeking to take the company in a new direction, averting what would have been a stunning embarrassment for the Hollywood's leading executive. The entertainment conglomerate's corporate leadership was facing a bold attack from billionaire activist investor Nelson Peltz, who loudly pushed the company to come up with a concrete succession plan and derided efforts to make more diverse movies and shows. You don't say. What that crusade felt, but the crusade did fall short as Disney's shareholders approved board members backed by the current company's leadership, denying seats for Peltz and his ally, Jay Rasulo, a former chief financial officer at Disney. Iger's victory comes at a key juncture for a company that's found itself at the center of wider American cultural wars as it attempts to navigate dizzying changes in the media landscape, including the rise of streaming, the decline of traditional television, and growing competition from social media. During the pandemic, Disney saw its shares climb to an all-time high amid the belief that streaming revenues would surge, but the stock price sank to fresh lows soon after the company struggled with how to succeed Iger, who left the company in 2020 and then returned 2 years later. Today, Disney's share price is at about $122, but little's changed from where it was 10 years ago. And so we'll continue to track this, particularly these activist investors that are looking to take a whole lot of companies in a different direction. And speaking of a different direction, we want more people to have access to the internet, not less, but millions may lose internet benefits if lawmakers don't act. Capital B News is reporting that that last fall, there were a number of folks that applied for the federal government's Affordable Connectivity Program through Xfinity, a mobile phone provider. The program, administered by the Federal Communications Commission, provides a discount of up to $30 per month, $75 for tribal households, towards internet service and mobile service, and a one-time discount of up to $100 towards a laptop or desktop or computer or tablet for eligible low-income households. There are a number of folks out there that will be impacted if that goes away. Several organizations, including the NAACP, Color of Change, and African American Mayors Association, have urged Congress to pass the bipartisan Affordable Connectivity Program Extension Act of 2024, which would provide $7 billion for the program. The bill has been referred to the Senate Appropriations Committee, and if it passes, it will move to the U.S. Senate for discussion. This is not the time for people to lose their access to the internet, particularly folks who live in rural America, just as much as people who live in urban America. Finally, the bird flu has been detected at the largest chicken egg manufacturer in the United States. Cal-Maine Foods Incorporated, the largest producer of fresh eggs in the U.S., has temporarily halted production at one of its facilities after the bird flu was detected there. That's what the company announced just yesterday. The company lost about 1.6 million laying hens and nearly 340,000 pullets, or about 3.6% of its flock, as a result of the outbreak. The virus was detected at a facility in Palmer County, Texas. Cal-Maine Foods, which is based in Mississippi, said will rely on other facilities in the meantime to minimize disruption to customers. Let us hope that this does not translate to an increase in egg prices. I enjoy my scrambled eggs. I think some of the best breakfast burritos out there have scrambled eggs in them. And so as a breakfast burrito lover, as an egg lover, I hope that this is contained. But, folks, beware until we get the all clear on that. When we come forward, I'm delighted to welcome to the show Dr. Jonathan Collins of Columbia University. There are a lot of trending headlines related to the 2024 election. One of the more troubling ones, you might think, is Trump is leading Biden in 6 key swing states amid concerns of the economy and his job performance. Plus, Wisconsin's uninstructed voters send Biden a message to change course on Gaza. But will he listen? Should he listen? We'll hear what Dr. Collins has to say when we come forward. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
A safe place to go loud.
A great place for progressive politics.
KBLA Talk 1580.
It's the celebration of a living legend.
It's the farewell tour.
It's made featuring Frankie Vessel.
Thank you for the love.
Sing to me that the soul icon, Anthony Hamilton. Plus, after 7, it's a Mother's Day celebration, May 12th in the Kia Forum.
In commemoration, come in your all white.
Get tickets at Ticketmaster. Presented by the Black Promoters Collective.
On your period, sudden gushes happen without warning. But now you can say goodbye to stand-up gush fears thanks to Always Ultra Thins with rapid dry technology. It absorbs gushes 2 times faster than the leading store brand and gives you up to 100% leak-free protection. Hello, clean and comfortable with Always Fear No Gush.
They said it couldn't be done. They said it was impossible. But mark my words, I did it. With Kohl's. That's right. I got everything I needed for my spring home refresh in one trip. I'm talking Sonoma Goods for Life bedding for 20% off and Espresso Virtual Plus Deluxe for 30% off. Cuisinart cookware sets for 35% off and Sonoma Goods for Life decor for 20% off. So if you want to get set for the season and save big, you can do it all at Kohl's. Select styles. Some exclusions apply. Espresso and Cuisinart coupons do not apply. See store or Kohl's.com for details.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
You got a big mouth.
We're unapologetically progressive and we don't black down.
You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, and so delighted to welcome to the show someone who's no stranger to me and no stranger to a lot of Angelinos, Dr. Jonathan Collins. These days, he is a professor at Columbia University, and he is a prolific social scientist, political scientist when it comes to some of the biggest issues that are trending this election cycle. And so welcome back to the show, Jonathan.
Oh, Nii-Quartelai, it's a pleasure. It's great to see you. Great to be in conversation with you. It's been too long.
It's been too long, but we're gonna do our best to catch up. And what a topic to catch up on. I saw this headline, as I'm sure many of our leaders, learners, and listeners did. USA Today reporting that Trump leads Biden in not one, not two, not three, not four, but 6 key swing states amid concerns of the economy and job performance. They say that the polls show that Trump is leading in Arizona by 5 points, in Georgia by 1 point, in Michigan by 3 points, in North Carolina by 6 points, Nevada by 4 points, and Pennsylvania by 3 points. When voters were asked to choose between the two candidates, Biden and Trump are both tied for Wisconsin. Is this call for concern? Should we be alarmed right now, or is this par for the course?
Well, we should be alarmed. And the question is why? So at the outset, you laid out some very important numbers that show just the closeness of the competition that we're heading towards with Trump and Biden. But the real reason I think why we should be particularly concerned is because what lies underneath, which is basically a giant game of chicken that's getting ready to happen between undecided voters and both of the presidential candidates. And so, this head-to-head is particularly important when you look at what happened in Michigan. And so Michigan's a great example because, Donald Trump received over 130,000 more votes in the state primary than Joe Biden, right? Which is a pretty sizable gap, which explains this percentage difference, right? But the interesting thing about Michigan is they actually allow you to vote as an uncommitted voter. So we get to see how voters who will vote eventually in November, who are undecided, would actually perform the type of voter performance that they would show in an election. And we see a relatively wide gap here. Well, what do we see from Michigan in terms of uncommitted voters? The Democratic primary voters were 3 times more likely to vote than the uncommitted voters who voted Republican. So the Democratic Party, Joe Biden in particular, has an uncommitted voter problem, has a low voter enthusiasm problem that supersedes the problem that Trump is facing. And now, if you were to actually factor in that gap, so Democratic voters were 3 times more likely to vote uncommitted in Michigan. If you were to actually assign those voters to Joe Biden, those uncommitted Democratic Party voters, that gap shrinks within 30,000 votes. So now we're looking at basically a toss-up. And so it goes back to this idea. What we're looking at going into 2024, the presidential general election, is a big game of chicken. What are these uncommitted voters going to do? Are they going to buck from the uncommitted status and support Joe Biden? Or are they going to sit back and see what happens if Joe Biden loses?
I mean, and I mean, that is well put. A big game of chicken with some pretty significant consequences. Talk to us about what these uncommitted voters are most concerned about. I think at first blush, I think there are a number of people that might presume that they are single issue voters, that they are mostly concerned about the conflict between Israel and Gaza at the moment. Is that true? Is there evidence to suggest that the uncommitted voter is largely holding their vote and protest to Biden based on that issue, or are there other issues in the ether that have them on the 50-yard line?
See, that, Dr. Quartey, makes this a very interesting and complicated situation. So we have an urge to want to treat undecided or uncommitted or independent voters as a block, but they're not really a block. They're a bunch of voters who we've assigned the same identity. It's like, like your extended family. Like, you didn't choose them. You don't all necessarily share the exact same values, but you've been lumped together by the virtue of a last name of a surname. And I think that's the best way to think about uncommitted voters in this situation. Uncommitted, we have a constellation of voters who are single issue voters, but they have vastly different issues. There are uncommitted voters who are very much concerned with the situation happening in Gaza. President Biden is facing significantly lower levels of approval for the handling of the Gaza situation than Donald Trump is facing for his speculated campaign promises around it. There's obviously the economy, where though we've made significant gains in lowering the inflation rate, President Biden is still facing attacks against the state of the economy. You have brewing and never-ending race relations issues that are happening in the country, and that this has also become a very important issue. There are folks who feel that Biden has not done enough for Black voters. And then one of the biggest issues that has entered the mainstream policy discourse lately is immigration. And as we see Donald Trump continue to campaign around the idea of the wall and these strong anti-immigration stances, and we see more ambivalence from the Biden administration, this too has been something that has fueled some of the lack of commitment that we see from uncommitted voters. So there is no silver bullet on this. This is a block of folks that are thrown together. They have different ideas, interests, and needs. And it's going to be very tricky for President Biden and former President Trump to identify the issues that will change those uncommitted statuses to strong voters.
And Dr. Collins, how much of this is just purely a messaging problem? We hear, it feels like almost every election cycle, people say, well, Democrats are just not as good at messaging as Republicans. Republicans, are, better at cutting to the heart of things, speaking to the heart of folks, as opposed to the head, whereas Democrats are the exact opposite. How much of this is purely messaging versus how much of this is purely moral?
Well, I think you have to think about it from a standpoint of the position that they're operating in. And so the messaging issue, I think, masks what is really the dilemma, which is an uneven playing field. And so the messaging dilemma assumes that the problem is that Republicans seem to be better, conservatives seem to be better at crafting messages around certain policy issues than Democrats, and that they're operating on the same level playing field when it comes to generating messages that could be received by voters. But that's not exactly true. What we've seen from the Republican Party over the past 2 decades is almost the self-proclaimed party of no. And I'm a parent. It's much easier to just say no than it is to propose a new idea for how we would respond to some sort of dilemma that someone is facing. And so what the Democrats have to do is not only just respond to the policy needs of voters, they have to come with very clear-cut ideas. They can't just be the party of no. And being in position to not be able to just be the party of no has created a harder startup cost that makes the job just significantly harder for Democrats to even craft messages.
Ooh, I want to dig into this more. And I also want to get Dr. Collins' take on this idea that, Donald Trump has a lower bar than President Biden. Republicans don't expect as much from Trump in terms of solutions, in terms of a vision for the future, as they do from Trump, and with a whole lot more specificity among Democrats. We're going to kick the tires on that and figure out how much of that is truth versus how much of that is perception. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. More with Dr. Collins, Columbia University professor, when we come forward.
The station you turn to when you had it up to gear with cultural incompetence. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton. Here's the latest on the Black Information Network. A 42-year-old Thurston County, Washington resident has pleaded guilty to making a threat against a Black federal employee and yelling racial slurs at the person. In February 2023, Stephen Perez went to the Olympia Social Security office to get a replacement Social Security card. The employee told Perez he didn't have the right paperwork, and Perez became irate, threatening to kill the worker. He also repeatedly yelled racial slurs. Under the plea deal, both sides will ask for a sentence of 2.5 years in prison. Perez will be sentenced in June. A longtime Illinois politician is hospitalized in critical condition with an undisclosed illness. Cook County Clerk Karen Yarborough is currently undergoing medical treatment for a, quote, serious condition at an undisclosed hospital. The 73-year-old is halfway through her term as county clerk. Yarborough is the first Black woman to hold the office. That's the latest. I'm Amber Payton on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network.
Some people just know the best rate for you is a rate based on you with Allstate, not one based on anyone else. So if you drive safely, you could save money. Good to know. Visit allstate.com or call for a quote today.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
LeBron James said his son Bronny has some tough decisions to make in the next few weeks. With USC men's basketball coach Andy Enfield leaving to take the job at Southern Methodist, people are wondering if Bronny will stay at USC for his sophomore season. LeBron said the family is leaving it up to Bronny to decide if he wants to transfer. Bronny has until April 30th to enter the NCAA's transfer portal. Bronny appeared in 25 games off the bench in his freshman year at USC. He averaged only 4.8 points and 2.1 assists. LSU star Angel Reese is entering the WNBA draft. The 6'3" forward could have returned to LSU for one more season. Reese is a projected top 10 pick. The WNBA draft is April 15th. Reese is a first-team All-American and SEC Player of the Year. She led LSU to the national championship in 2023. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
It's KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about. I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Some days I cover up because of my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis. Now I'm hitting the road with clearer skin thanks to Skyrizi, Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection for adults who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy. With Skyrizi, 3 out of 4 people achieved 90% clearer skin at 4 months. And Skyrizi is just 4 doses a year after 2 starter doses.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
Thanks to Skyrizi, there's nothing on my skin, and that means everything. Ask your doctor today about Skyrizi, the #1 dermatologist prescribed biologic in psoriasis, and visit skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKY-RIZI to learn more.
Fight climate change. This Earth Day, April 22nd, go Metro and ride for free. You'll make a difference. Metro buses run on clean energy, making every day Earth Day. Together, we can clear the air and connect our communities. Start your journey at metro.net.
I feel occasional burning and stabbing in my hands as I age.
I sometimes feel numbness and tingling in my feet as I get older.
It's starting to get in the way of doing what I love.
At Nervive, we hear you and we can help. Nervive's clinically studied dose of alpha lipoic acid reduces occasional nerve discomfort in as little as 7 days with continued daily use.
Now that I know, I'm taking control.
Try Nervive Nerve Relief and say yes to healthy nerves.
These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Without the ones like you, who work tirelessly to keep things running, everything would suddenly stop. Hospitals, factories, schools, and power plants, they all depend on you. No matter the weather, emergency, or time of day, you're the ones who get it done. At Grainger, we're here for you with professional-grade industrial supplies. Count on real-time product availability and fast delivery. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
We knew you'd stick around. This is LA's home for Progressive Talk Radio. Welcome back to KBLA Talk 1580.
You're muted.
Oh, that would help. That would help. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, and delighted to be in conversation and reminded where the mute button is by Dr. Jonathan Collins. He's a professor over at Columbia University and a political scientist who tracks a lot of the issues that we talk about day to day. He tracks them very closely, and he's no stranger to Los Angeles, a former Angelino, I'd like to think, who's on loan in New York for now. But before we went to break, we were talking about a really troubling headline in USA Today that really represents the red flashing light that exists this election cycle, at least for Democrats looking to keep control of the White House. Trump leads Biden in 6 key swing states amid concerns of the economy and job performance. Before we went to break, Dr. Collins, I was asking you to weigh in on sort of the war of expectations, right? It seems to me that rank and file Republicans hold the bar pretty low when it comes to what they expect from former President Trump. They don't expect him to behave presidential. They don't expect him to offer a whole lot of solutions to the challenges that everyday Americans are facing. And with Biden, there's a laundry list of things that Democrats expect from him. In fact, there are constituencies in the Democratic Party that feel like Biden just has not done enough to advance the agenda of Black people, of LGBTQ people, of Latino people, and so forth. And so talk to us about this war of expectations. Is there a there, or is this just an excuse for candidates that aren't performing as well as they should?
Well, I think there's a there, and I'll give you an example. So if you go back and read, so in June of 2023, I believe, Trump gives a speech at the CPAC conference, and this is the big conservative conference, and this is Trump giving his first real public speech as the presumptive nominee. Leading up to this moment, he had kept not a low profile, but he had been distancing himself from this idea that I was in competition with these other Republican candidates. And so this CPAC conference is the first time that he really steps to the forefront as, all right, I'm the nominee and I'm going to show you my political agenda. And one of the first things that he brags about is the fact that we banned critical race theory. Now, if you know anything about critical race theory policies in states, you know that critical race theory was not being practiced as a mandated curricular policy in any state in the US. You basically banned nothing. You banned You banned Twinkies from being healthy. Yet this is one of the primary policy victories that you take credit for. And so this is what I mean by a low bar: banning things that don't exist, saying no to things that require extreme policy momentum and inertia to get done. And to the extent that we really saw policy related activity happening from the Trump administration, they were things that were honestly politically inevitable. Think about COVID-19. Former President Trump went from a COVID-19 denier, from spreading misinformation about drinking bleach as a cure.
You can't make this up. It's true.
To suddenly supporting a COVID-19 relief bill, because it became inevitable that this is the real thing. We have to deal with this. There has to be some sort of policy action taken. Now, President Biden inherits this, expands the COVID relief package, and then we actually get a stronger economy. We get a way to deal with the issues of inflation. We get businesses that are saved and reopened and blossoming. We get schools that have been able to put in policies and strategies that have put us on the course to COVID recovery, of the learning loss COVID recovery that needs to take place. And none of this is still enough when you look at the polls. None of this is enough when you look at the presidential satisfaction numbers. President Biden enters with some of the lowest presidential satisfactory numbers that we've seen in modern history. And so it's hard for me to look at these empirical facts and see anything other than two people who are held to different standards.
Yeah, two different standards that could determine the outcome of the November 2024 election. Just sort of continuing on that path of these two candidates, being held to two different standards. I've said this on the show before. I'll say it again. President Biden came out of retirement to run for president under this idea of restoring the soul of America. And to me, it seemed as if he was invoking some moral leadership as his call to action to come out of retirement to run for the presidency. And so juxtapose that almost 4 years ago with recent reports, and the Washington Post has reported the U.S. has signed off on more bombs and warplanes for Israel. Not less, more. The Biden administration in recent days quietly authorized the transfer of billions of dollars in bombs and fighter jets to Israel, despite Washington's concerns about an anticipated military offensive in southern Gaza that could threaten the lives of hundreds of thousands of Palestinian civilians. Just yesterday we reported on how World Central Kitchen, how they had volunteers in Gaza that were struck by an Israeli bomb and killed several of them. In which case the president responded with grief about it. But there are a number of folks out there that are saying, well, wait a minute, how can you feel a level of grief and sorrow about what happened when you're sitting in a position of power to be able to undercut Israel's ability to drop these bombs in Gaza. And so talk to us about the state of moral leadership in this race. We have Trump and Biden, and at least to a lot of voters in these primary states, they don't seem to be seeing as much distinction as maybe they once did between these two candidates as moral leaders.
Well, I think the question of morality is very interesting. And before we get into the Gaza conversation, I want to take this morality piece and I want us to sort of zoom out and take a step back here. And so when Biden is talking about restoring the morality of the presidency, he's reminding us of some things that I think we forgot, because things move quickly and time passes. But January 6th, was it 2021, a sitting president activated a group of citizens to essentially bombard the US Capitol, the primary policy-making body in this country, to basically change the results of a presidential election. Like, this is, I think we to underscore this, if you look at the Constitution, they lay out all the duties and stipulations for all branches of government. The duties for the president are the lightest. We don't have a lot of rules for presidents. There's only really one primary rule that the president of the United States has to abide by, and it's don't commit treason. That's the job. Don't commit treason. Do not act in the interest of another country or subvert the interest of our country. And so when you try to overthrow the outcome, when you try to change the outcome of a presidential election, you're undercutting the legitimacy of our democracy. And you're basically creating an issue of subverting the interests of America, of American democracy, over your own self-interest as a citizen who has these other interests, ego, whatever you may call it. And so just by having a president who would not try to overthrow the government puts us in different moral and ethical territory.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And, that's part of the reason why the November election is going to be so critically important. It is that fork in the road in terms of, where are we going to go? Is it going to be more democracy, less democracy? Is it going to be unfettered capitalism, or is it going to be something else? And this also has implications for democracies, some of which are younger than ours in other parts of the world. This time last year, I was just coming back from a trip with Vice President Harris. I was covering her in Africa, in Ghana, Tanzania, and Zambia. And we were reminded at that last stop from the Zambian president that folks are watching to see, is America who we say we are? Do we adhere to the rule of law? Is it true that no one, not even a president, is above the law? Folks are paying attention, and you better believe there will be a domino effect around the world, felt around the world. Dr. Collins, I want you to stay right there. We have another segment coming up where we want to talk about Beyonce's song Blackbird. There's a lot of folks that have a lot to say about that particular song on her Cowboy Carter album. We're going to give Dr. Collins an opportunity to share the quiet part out loud when we come forward. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
Out loud. KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African-American communities of Los Angeles? Buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
My mom has taken up going to the park to practice yoga.
My dad's going to a club, but not a book club, a salsa club.
Finding new hobbies comes with age.
My mom has started getting lost and not knowing where she's going.
Becoming lost or disoriented doesn't. Confusion with time or place may be a sign of Alzheimer's. An early diagnosis can help improve the quality of life for your loved one. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's at 10signs.org. Brought to you by the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
At Charmin, we heard you shouldn't talk about going to the bathroom in public, so we decided to sing about it.
Roll Charmin Ultra Strong when you drop in the beat. It cleans with way less effort on your seat. Yeah, roll it. Drop it. Yeah, roll it. Drop it. Charmin flows extra strong from the road. Your butt hella clean while you're sitting on the bowl. Yeah, it's all you need for that bathroom groove. Get you in and out without nothing to prove.
Charmin Ultra Strong cleans better so you can use less. Enjoy the go with Charmin.
Pros save big every day when you buy in bulk at Lowe's. Save 10% when you buy 68 or more select OSB sheathing. Plus, save an extra 5% every day on eligible purchases when you use your Lowe's business credit card. Visit us for the materials you need. Lowe's knows savings. Lowe's knows pros. Selection varies by location. While supplies last. Discount taken at time of purchase. See sales associate for details. 5% offer subject to credit approval. Exclusions and terms apply. See store lowes.com/credit for details. U.S. only.
Heard any other talk radio lately that sounds anything like this? You're listening to Unapologetically Progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey in conversation with Dr. Jonathan E. Collins, professor at Columbia University. I'm sure, you know, if your group chats have been jumping like mine since Queen Bee released Cowboy Carter, then I'm sure you've been listening to the album on a loop. And one of my favorite songs, maybe even one of your favorite songs, is Blackbird. But not everybody knows that this is an old Beatles song. NPR reported that what the Beatles and Beyonce's Blackbird means to a Little Rock 9 member. Beyonce's recent cover of the recent Beatles classic Blackbird was especially profound to listeners who know that the song pays homage to the Little Rock 9, a group of Black students who were at the center of the fight to desegregate public schools in the United States. Her version, which is featured on her new album, Cowboy Carter, was even more meaningful to one member of the Little Rock 9, Melba Patillo Beals. Beals was 15 years old when she enrolled at the previously all-white Central High School in Little Rock, Arkansas in 1957, and she and 8 other Black students were famously escorted by the 101st Airborne Division on their first day of class. They also endured verbal and physical harassment throughout high school. And Paul McCartney said that on several occasions that Blackbird was inspired by Little Rock 9. He also said that the term Blackbird represented Black girl. He said that in a 2018 interview with GQ. Beals is 82 now. She's a reporter and author of several books, including Warrior, Don't Cry, and March Forward Girl. A fan of both the Beatles and Beyonce, she said the song is more special to her than ever. How special is this song to you, Dr. Collins? And, what are we not saying about the significance of Beyonce publishing this song on her much anticipated album?
Well, this song and this album, and really the run that Beyonce has been on lately, has been all about freedom. And, let's think back to how Beyonce got here. And let's understand the reputation or how Beyonce was presented to us. I mean, she's been famous for so long. She's been on top for so long that it's easy to forget that, Beyonce, the lead singer of Destiny's Child, managed by her father, taken out of schools in Houston to basically be groomed into the prodigy that she became. And there were real questions as to how much agency Beyonce had. And as she peaked as a pop artist, there were always these lingering questions around, well, is there depth there? What's the substance? Is Beyonce in control? And is Beyonce a true artist? And I think the last couple of albums, and especially this album in particular, she's been answering those criticisms in a resounding fashion. And so, one, the artistry of this album, of taking on the country genre and putting together what has to be the best country album, not this year, probably this decade. And not only taking on the country genre, but also integrating other genres like rock into, and of course R&B and soul and house and dance. Like this is this album has a multiplicity of sounds that you also don't typically see from a country genre to album. And then you get to the messaging, and this is where you see the real artistry here. The idea of singing about the blackbird, and not only what that has meant for the original song, the original Beatles song that was covered, and you did an incredible job of underlining the history underneath it. But this harkens back to a tradition of I Too Sing of Freedom, right? There's a spiritual essence to the song, as short as it is, that Beyonce is tapping into. And it's the kind of spiritual and historical and artistic awareness that many of her biggest detractors and doubters didn't think that she had.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. And it is a beautiful album. If you all have not listened to it yet, you've got to check out Cowboy Carter. There's so many great songs on this album. I love the collab with Dolly Parton and with Miley Cyrus, as much as I really enjoy the song Blackbird. It is really beautiful and inspiring, to say the least. Let me finish with this. Governor Ron DeSantis suspends an Orlando city commissioner accused of stealing a 96-year-old's money. That's right. USA Today is reporting that Florida governor, maybe your favorite governor, maybe not, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis issued an executive order suspending Orlando City Commissioner Regina Hill days after she was indicted for allegedly stealing hundreds of thousands of dollars from a 96-year-old woman to pay for surgeries, hotels, and personal expenses. Hill was indicted last week and is now facing 7 felony charges for her alleged crimes, including 3 counts of exploitation of the elderly, 2 counts of fraudulent use of personal identification, and 1 count of mortgage fraud, and also 1 count of scheming to defraud over $50,000. DeSantis's office referenced a section in the Florida Constitution that says, quotes, by order of the governor, any elected municipal officer indicted for a crime may be suspended from office until acquitted, and the office filled by appointment for the period of suspension not extended beyond the term unless these powers are vested elsewhere by law and or municipal charter. Now, look, you're not going to find me agreeing with Governor Ron DeSantis very often. But I think this is one of the few examples of him getting something at least half right. We know, and for folks who don't know, in my previous life, I did a lot of advocacy work for seniors, and so I'm very well aware of how they are preyed upon, and how they become the subject of a lot of fraud, a lot of consumer fraud that's out there. And so, if indeed these allegations are true, this person should absolutely be held accountable. But it's not lost on me that it was easy for Ron DeSantis to take clear and decisive action when somebody violated the integrity of their office. But this is also the same person that's endorsed Donald Trump. Did you catch that, Dr. Collins? Because I certainly caught that.
Yeah, picking and choosing when we care about unethical behavior.
Yeah, that's no way to build a more perfect union. We're gonna have to leave it there. My thanks to Dr. Jonathan E. Collins, a professor over at Columbia University, a political scientist in high demand, and we can't wait to have you back again soon.
I look forward to it, and happy belated.
Thank you. 40 feels good. 40 feels good. Thank you very much, Dr. Collins. And a big thanks to the Village that helps us to produce a more perfect union each and every day. Our executive producer, Tavis Smiley, our sound engineer extraordinaire, Miles Lowe, our show producer, Robert Battles, and our podcast publishing guru, Odell Bodie, as well as each and every one of you, all of our leaders, learners, and listeners. Remember, don't panic, organize. Do what you can from where you are with what you have. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai.